She was beautiful, radiant in a way that stopped a man mid-journey, made him forget the dust on his sandals and the weariness in his bones. But her story was never just about her beauty. It was about longing, about waiting, about what it costs to love deeply in a world that doesn't play fair, about a God who sees every tear, counts every year, and never forgets a promise made in the silence of a desperate heart. Her name was Rachel, and this isn't just the story of a woman who was loved. It's the story of a woman who suffered, who struggled, who held on when everything inside her wanted to let go, and how God, in His own time, turned her mourning into a miracle. In the ancient land of Haran, far to the north and east of Canaan, there lived a man named Laban. He was a man of flocks and fields, sharp in business, cunning in negotiation. He had 2 daughters. The elder was Leah, described only with quiet, careful words. Her eyes were gentle, some say weak. The younger was Rachel, and the text does not hesitate. She was beautiful in form and beautiful in appearance. There was something about her that the ancient writers could not pass over in silence. Rachel was a shepherdess. Every day she led her father's flocks to the well, rolling away the great stone, drawing water, tending to the sheep with her own hands. She was not a woman of the inner chamber. She was strong, capable, working under the sun. And it was at this well on an ordinary day that her life changed forever. A man came running, a stranger. He had been traveling a great distance, weary and road-worn, and yet when he saw the flocks of Laban approaching, and Rachel among them, he did not hesitate. He rolled the stone from the well himself, a stone that normally required several men to move, and he watered the flock. Then he wept. He kissed Rachel on the cheek and wept aloud because he had traveled so far and because God had led him here, to this place, to this woman, to this moment. His name was Jacob. He was the son of Isaac, the grandson of Abraham, the man who carried the covenant promise of God in his very bloodline. He had fled from his homeland after deceiving his father and stealing the blessing intended for his brother Esau. He came to Haran not as a wealthy suitor, but as a fugitive, arriving with nothing but the clothes on his back and the memory of a dream in which God had spoken to him at Bethel. And yet, even in his exile, God had not abandoned him. Even in his running, God had directed his steps. Even in his emptiness, God was preparing something beautiful. Jacob told Rachel who he was, the son of Rebekah, her aunt. She ran and told her father, and Laban came out and embraced Jacob and brought him into the house. Jacob stayed, and after a month of working and living among Laban's household, Laban said to him, "You should not serve me for nothing just because you are my kinsman. Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Jacob looked at Rachel, and his heart made its decision before his mouth could find the words. "I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter," he said. 7 years. Not a bride price paid in silver, not a transaction settled in an afternoon. 7 years of his life, 7 years of labor, 7 years of sweat and seasons passing. That was what Rachel was worth to Jacob, and Laban agreed. What follows is one of the most quietly beautiful and heartbreaking passages in all of Scripture. 7 years passed, and to Jacob the text says they seemed like only a few days because of the love he had for her. 7 years felt like days. That is not the mathematics of patience, that is the arithmetic of love. When you love someone the way Jacob loved Rachel, time bends. The waiting doesn't crush you because the waiting is for something, for someone, worth every single day. At the end of 7 years, Jacob went to Laban and said, Give me my wife, for my time is completed, that I may go in to her." Laban prepared a wedding feast. The village gathered, the wine flowed, the celebration went long into the night, and in the darkness, under the bridal veil, Laban brought not Rachel, but Leah. In the morning, Jacob woke up and looked at the woman beside him, and the text says with devastating simplicity, "Behold, it was Leah." The deceiver had been deceived. The man who had dressed in his brother's clothes and pretended to be someone he was not had been given a bride hidden behind a veil. There is a kind of divine irony in Jacob's story that is impossible to miss. He had sown deception, and now he was reaping it in the most personal, most painful way possible. He turned to Laban with anguish. "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" And Laban answered with cold calculation, "It is not so done in our place to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years." Another 7 years. Jacob agreed, and within the week he received Rachel as his wife as well. He loved Rachel more than Leah, the text says plainly. He would serve Laban another 7 years for her, 14 years total, 14 years of his life given for the love of this one woman. But here is where Rachel's story becomes something far more complex than a love story, because when God opened the eyes of heaven and looked at the house of Jacob, he did not start with Rachel. He opened Leah's womb, Leah, the unloved wife, Leah, the one who had been used as a pawn in her father's scheme, Leah, who lay beside a husband whose heart belonged to someone else. God saw her pain, God heard her longing, and he gave her sons. 4 sons in succession, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, each name a testament to her heartache and her hope. With each birth, she cried out to be seen, to be loved, to finally be enough. And Rachel watched, month after month, year after year. She watched her sister's belly swell and her arms fill with children, and she, Rachel, the beautiful one, the beloved one, the one for whom a man had given 14 years, she remained barren. The anguish broke through. The text does not dress it up. Rachel went to Jacob and cried, "Give me children, or I shall die. Give me children, or I shall die." It is one of the rawest lines in the entire Bible. She was not being dramatic. She was not being petty. She was a woman in agony, a woman whose identity in her world, whose value in her society, whose very sense of self was bound up in something she could not produce, could not control, could not pray into existence no matter how hard she tried. She wanted to be a mother. She wanted what her sister had, and the wanting was killing her. Jacob's response was sharp, almost harsh. Some scholars read it as anger, others as desperation. "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" He was not wrong, but he was not tender either. He was a man caught between a beloved wife in tears and a God who had not yet answered. Rachel, in her desperation, did what women in her culture sometimes did. She gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob as a wife, so that Bilhah might bear children on Rachel's behalf, children that Rachel could claim as her own through the customs of the time. Bilhah bore 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali. Rachel named them both, and in the naming she cried out her anguish and her hope. "God has judged me, and has also heard my voice and given me a son." Even in borrowed blessing, she was reaching toward God. But then came a day that seems strange, almost trivial at first glance, but which reveals the depths of Rachel's longing. Leah's son Reuben found mandrakes in the field, Plants believed in the ancient world to have powers of fertility. Rachel saw them and wanted them desperately. She negotiated with Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." Leah's response was bitter. "Is it a small matter that you have taken my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" There it is. Two sisters, one husband, one barren, one unloved, both suffering in different ways, both reaching for something they couldn't quite grasp. This is the household God placed his covenant people within, not a tidy, clean story, a human one. Rachel traded Leah's night with Jacob for the mandrakes, and God, in a move that confounds all human strategy, opened Leah's womb again. Not Rachel's. Leah bore 2 more sons and a daughter. The mandrakes gave Rachel nothing, because God's timing cannot be manipulated. God's purposes cannot be fast-forwarded by plants or schemes or trades made at the tent door. He is not a vending machine. He is a father, and his delays are not his denials. Then the text says 5 of the most important words in Rachel's story. Then God remembered Rachel. Then God remembered Rachel. What does it mean that God remembered her? Was he watching somewhere else? Was she hidden from his sight? No. The God who counts the hairs on a head, who sees every sparrow fall, who knows the end from the beginning, he never forgot Rachel for a single moment. Remembered, in the biblical language, does not mean recalled after forgetting. It means he moved, he acted, he stepped into her story in a new way, after years of silence, after years of barrenness, after the mandrakes failed and the prayers seemed to go unanswered, and the months turned into years and the years stacked up like stones. God remembered Rachel. He opened her womb, and she conceived, and she bore a son. And Rachel named him Joseph, meaning may he add, and in the naming she made a declaration: God has taken away my reproach. The Lord add to me another son. Even in her joy, she was asking for more. Even in receiving one miracle, she believed God for another. That is not ingratitude. That is faith. That is a woman who had waited so long that she understood in her bones that God was not done. After Joseph was born, Jacob wanted to go home. 14 years had passed. He was ready to leave Laban and return to Canaan. What followed was a complicated negotiation with Laban, a time of Jacob building his own flocks, a season in which God continued to prosper Jacob even as Laban tried to cheat him at every turn. And eventually, the moment came when God told Jacob, "Go, return to the land of your fathers, and I will be with you." Jacob called Rachel and Leah to the field and told them everything God had said. They agreed without hesitation. Whatever God has said to you, do it. These women were done with Laban's house, done with their father's schemes. They packed everything and left. Rachel, before she left, took something, her father's household idols, small figurines, possibly connected to inheritance rights or spiritual protection in that culture. Why she took them, the text does not fully explain. Perhaps she was not yet entirely free from the beliefs of the household she was raised in. Perhaps she was hedging her bets. Perhaps she was still learning, still growing in her understanding of the God of Jacob, the God who had finally answered her prayer. Laban chased after them and confronted Jacob about the missing idols. Jacob, not knowing Rachel had taken them, made a bold declaration: "Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live." He did not know the risk he had just placed on the woman he loved. Laban searched the tents one by one. He came to Rachel's tent, and Rachel, quick-thinking and resourceful, hid the idols in the camel's saddle and sat upon it. She told her father she could not rise because the way of women was upon her. Laban searched, but found nothing. It was a deception born of fear, and yet, unknowingly, Jacob's words hung in the air. A sentence had been pronounced. The clock had started. Jacob and Laban made their peace and parted. The family travelled on toward Canaan, and somewhere on that journey, somewhere in the territory of Benjamin, just outside the town of Bethlehem, Rachel went into labour. This was the second child she had prayed for, the son she had asked for when she named Joseph. God was adding to her, just as she had asked. But the labour was hard, desperately hard. And as the baby was born, as the midwife said, "Do not fear, for you have another son." Rachel was dying. She was slipping away even as the cry of new life filled the air. With her last breath, she named him Benoni, son of my sorrow. Jacob, weeping over his beloved, changed the name. He named the boy Benjamin, son of my right hand, son of strength. Jacob refused to let his son carry the weight of his mother's dying breath as his name. He called the boy into strength even in the moment of their greatest grief. And Rachel died, and Jacob buried her there, on the road to Bethlehem, not in the cave of Machpelah, where Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebekah were laid. On the road, in a hurried, heartbroken burial by the side of the path, he set a pillar over her grave, and the text says, with quiet sorrow, that pillar marks Rachel's tomb to this day. She was gone, and yet she was not silent. Hundreds of years later, the prophet Jeremiah would write one of the most haunting verses in all of prophecy. A voice is heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted for her children because they are no more. It is the voice of a mother weeping for her descendants, for the children of Israel carried into exile, for the suffering of a people who shared her bloodline. And then God says to her, in that same prophecy, "Keep your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for there is a reward for your work. They shall come back from the land of the enemy." Rachel weeping for her children. Matthew would quote that same verse when Herod slaughtered the children of Bethlehem, searching for the infant Jesus. The road where Rachel was buried, the region near Bethlehem, it became a place associated with mothers weeping, with children lost, with grief so deep it echoed through generations, but also with the promise that they would return, that the weeping would end, that God had not forgotten. Rachel's story is not a tidy one. She was loved extravagantly. She suffered deeply. She waited longer than seemed fair. She struggled with comparison, with jealousy, with barrenness, with desperate bargains that didn't work. She died before she could see her sons grow. She never saw Joseph become the second most powerful man in Egypt. She never saw Benjamin become the ancestor of a whole tribe of Israel. She never saw how God used her suffering, her sons, her story, for a plan so much larger than one lifetime. But here is what her story tells us. God does not forget the ones who are waiting. He sees the years of barrenness, the prayers that seem to echo unanswered into silence, the pain of watching others receive what you've been asking for. He sees the Rachel crying out in her tent, the woman who has tried everything and found that none of her own strategies could produce what only He can give. He remembers, and when He remembers, He moves. Rachel's firstborn was Joseph, who would save a nation from famine. Her second son was Benjamin, from whose tribe would come Saul, the first king of Israel, and later the Apostle Paul, who would carry the gospel to the ends of the earth. The sons she almost didn't have, the children of her years of waiting, became pillars of history. The barren woman became the mother of nations. The road where she was buried became holy ground in the story of salvation. And the God who seemed silent for so long was never absent for a single moment. Rachel's life says this to every person who has ever felt overlooked, bypassed, or forgotten while others seem to receive what they prayed for. Your tears are not wasted. Your waiting is not invisible. The years of longing are not evidence that God has moved on. They are the chapters before the miracle. They are the darkness before the dawn that God has already planned. He remembered Rachel, and He remembers you. The same God who opened her womb after years of silence, who placed her sons at the center of redemptive history, who caused her name to be spoken by prophets and apostles centuries after she was buried on a road outside Bethlehem. That God is still writing stories. Stories where the last chapter hasn't been read yet. Stories where the barren places become the most fruitful. Stories where waiting becomes the very thing that makes the miracle more beautiful. Rachel didn't live to see the end of her story, but God did, and He wrote it beautifully. Maybe you're in the middle of your story right now. Maybe you're in the years of the waiting, the years of the longing, the years where it seems like everyone around you is receiving what you've been crying out for. Maybe you've tried your own strategies. Maybe you've made trades that didn't work out the way you hoped. Hear this: God has not forgotten you. He remembered Rachel. He will remember you. And what He is writing in your silence may be the most powerful chapter in a story that reaches far beyond what you can see. Keep praying. Keep believing. Keep placing the name of the next thing you're trusting Him for, the way Rachel named Joseph and dared to ask for more, because the God who adds is not finished yet.